the rest of the world and all the foreign adversaries that America is a little bit of a paper tiger. And in order to restore confidence in American imperialism and American military might, Donald Trump can't just like chicken out of this, and he can't just pull out of this, right? Because there will be devastating consequences. That stop sending me Scott Ritter analysis, please. Oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. Stop. Fucking cranks in this goddamn community. Jesus Christ, dude. Stop! At least Professor Jiang is like, it is somewhat interesting. Like, I mean, he's a crank too, but like, I want to have Professor Jiang on the show. But like with Scott Ritter, it's like, I mean, that's just a full crank. Jesus Christ. So many of you guys are so desperate for like someone who is seemingly on the opposing side of like American military adventurism that you find yourself like in the throes of maximalist cranks. Jiang is apparently a Holocaust denier, so maybe hold off on that. No, of course I'm not going to hold off on that. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to ask him about that shit. He also said Jews invented Islam. Jiang is a crank too. I know. Shut up. I'm not a fucking baby, okay? You are a baby. In comparison to me, you are the baby here, okay? Stop trying to baby a 34-year-old man. Yes, I'm totally aware of all the stuff that predictive history, aka Professor Jiang, has put forward, okay? I know. Where were we? Let's continue.
Now in the hands of the Islamic Republic's armed forces, and that the American forces will not be the ones to end the war. For more on this, let's bring in Tauhid Asadi in Tehran. So Iran remaining very defiant there, Tauhid.
Yes, indeed. According to the statement that we heard, not just from the IRGC, but also when it comes to diplomatic sources and the Iranian Foreign Minister himself in particular, we hear this very strong message that the question of how war is going to be ended, when it's going to be ended, and how long it's going to be taking is something that Tehran says the question remains for it to answer, not for the Americans or the Israelis. And this is actually a strong message of defiance that we heard. Also, the Iranian armed forces are constantly saying that they are ready for a war of attrition, for a long-time confrontation, and there is this readiness militarily speaking in that regard. Also, we see as the reality on the ground that retaliatory strikes by IRGC, one wave after another, is continued, and they are coming every time with the strong messages, that the latest of which they said that they are using +1-ton warheads in the recent and next waves of their retaliatory strikes, which is quite indicative of the very fact that the situation looks far from any point of de-escalation. And also, related to that conversation, we had the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Esmail Baghaei, in his press conference yesterday to say that, quote-unquote, as long as military aggression continues, talking about anything other than crushing answer is not relevant. Iranians right now, we hear from different officials in Tehran, including the Supreme National Security Council, including the foreign minister, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry, the Iranian president. They're all saying that right now, as long as the aggressions, the attacks continue, talking about any negotiation or ceasefire is not going to be on the agenda. So they have sort of conditioned any potential de-escalation to halting of these strikes, which we have been witnessing up until the moment.
All right.
A lot of you literally see some videos of people saying things that you agree with and instantly assume that these guys have always been fucking valid, have always provided sound analysis. Okay? it's very frustrating. Like, exercise a little bit of fucking discipline in your media diet. Like, this is how you fall for the likes of Jimmy Dore. This is how you fall for the likes of fucking Tucker Carlson. This is how you fall for the likes of like sometimes people have different reasons for why they are saying things that are that come across as agreeable to you. Okay. Sometimes people are fucking, doesn't Al Jazeera provide pretty consistent analysis? Yes, I'm not talking about Al Jazeera. I'm talking about Predictive History, Scott Ritter, Jimmy Dore, and you know, who else? I mean, Tucker Carlson's another one. Candace Owens does this to a certain degree when it comes to Israel-related shit. Even fucking Nick Fuentes. Like, you have to look at the things that these people believe, okay? You can't just like lean into one crank take that they have and assume that they know what the fuck they're talking about. Okay? Being jealous of Jiang is so low. Wait, no, I want Dr. Jiang is so good. Lamau, you're so jealous. Oh my fucking God. I literally want to have him on the stream. Okay? He just has a lot of in a sea of like very good takes, right? In a sea of very good takes, he has a lot of nutty takes. Okay. He can be very insightful. And then sometimes you hear some shit where you're like, oh my God, he's out of his fucking mind. Also, he's not a doctor, I don't think. He's not a professor. I am a professor of jihad, a doctor of jihad. He is not a real doctor, I don't think. He's an English teacher in high school. Like, Dr. Jiang literally just did a Richard Spencer stream, okay? Bro, this community would literally end up fighting for Turtle Island. I know. There are so many. There are a lot of people that are just tuning in because they're looking for someone to cut through the noise, that someone that's just not fucking selling them on a lie about American imperialism being mighty. And then they come in here and they're listening to what I have to say and they're like, "Oh my God, you must be in agreement with like a lot of these other cranks. You must be in agreement with like everything else that they're saying." And no. Like, I have a very specific set of values that I very openly talk about all the time. Like, if you're going to miss me when you start talking about like Illuminati and shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that I am going to be on board with. I thought Jiang was a Harvard professor. No, he's not. What the fuck? No, he's a English teacher, I think in like Beijing high school or something. Yeah, he's a big like free society or Freemason secret society guy. But I want to explore it. I want to explore what he has to say. Like, look, the most reliable people that I will always ride for, that I will, even if I have my disagreements with them, is people like Mersheimer, okay? People like Jeffrey Sachs. People like Norm Finkelstein. These are people who are endlessly reliable when it comes to their analysis, their foreign policy, their interpretation of events. Chris Hedges is another guy, right? Like, these are people who are legit. These are serious people. They're consistent. They have a fully developed worldview. I might not completely agree with everything that they're saying, but like, they're not fucking cranks, okay? Yanis Varoufakis is another one. Abby Martin is another one. You know, they have a body of work that you can lean into, that you can learn from, that you can actually, that you can actually fucking listen to. There are, however, a lot of other people out there in the periphery that are, dancing in the waters of being fucking cranks. Trita Parsi is great for Iran-related things as well. Yes. Anyone from CIP or anyone from Responsible Statecraft is pretty solid, pretty reliable, I would say, as a part of, two of the only fucking think tanks that exist out there that are unironically not as like gung-ho on maximalist American military conquest. Yeah, listen to people that go on Democracy Now!, for example. Those are solid people. Those are reliable people. Okay, some of you see someone that like kind of agrees with you, and you just lean into it. All right, let's just continue with this.
Let's find out
I'm done talking about this
reaction,
shit.
the Israeli reaction with Nida Ibrahim, who's in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank. Israel and the U.S. are, of course, engaged in this conflict together. They launched it together against Iran. How are Israeli officials viewing President Trump's comment that the war might be winding down?
Well, we're not expecting them to make these official statements in public, but we expect a lot of lobbying to be carried out behind the scenes. Let's not forget that today we were supposed to see the U.S. Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, as well as Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, come into Israel, but that visit has been cancelled. And many are saying that this cancellation could reflect a tension in the how is the war going to unfold between the U.S. and Israel? Let's not forget that since the beginning of the war, the goals did not fully align between what the U.S. wanted from this war and what Israel wanted. And Israel kept reiterating that they want to keep operating until they eliminate the Iranian, what they call existential.
Bro, literally, okay, there you go, dude. Yeah, can someone explain his crank takes? I know he voted for Trump, but he still knows what he's talking about when it comes to weapons inspection.
Threat, as well as pounding the regime's facilities.
This is also part of the reason why I have a lot of smoke for fucking ACP guys as well, okay? Normally I don't speak about this, but if you're like a fucking Duganist, okay, and if you like sincerely think that Russia is truly an anti-imperialist force, for example, then yeah, I'm obviously going to have takes about that. I'm obviously going to have disagreements about that. Like I understand Like, I understand the role that Russia has played around the globe, okay, with its invasion of Ukraine, triggering the events that are unfolding right now. But there's a difference between, like, analysis and outward support for these kinds of actions, rather than engaging with it critically. Dugan is a non-factor, but it doesn't fucking matter. Like, him being a non-factor does not change the dynamic here when you are leaning into his analysis, when you're leaning into his philosophy.
Military facilities, nuclear facilities, as well as oil facilities, which is also another reason why the U.S. administration has been showing concerns, according to media reports, because they believe that when Israel hits these oil facilities, that could trigger ordinary and usual, any Iranian who's affected by this could lobby behind their, lobby around and support their government, which is something that it's not necessarily what the U.S. and Israel want. The U.S., while President Trump has mentioned the regime change at the beginning of the war, but it was absent from from the latest messages from Donald Trump. So this seems to be an issue that is at that both parties differ on, and it will be seen how the Israelis are going to try and convince Trump to continue with this war, which is something that Israel has said it wants to do.
Yeah, and the Iranians also continuing with their attacks on Israel, Nida, across several areas of Israel. Tell us about what's been happening and what impact this is having on people's lives.
Well, yesterday we saw 2 Israelis being killed in these Iranian missiles that were sent into Israel. One of them has exploded, according to Israeli authorities, in 6 different locations. We are talking about cluster munitions, warheads that, when they are intercepted, they explode, and the remnants of them splinter all across the area they're in. And that's why we've seen 2 Israelis killed and many others being taken to hospitals. According to the Israeli Ministry of Health, around 150 299 people have been hospitalized just in the past.
You discount people like Ritter, though. Put aside his personal feelings on Russia. His actual military analysis is extremely good, and sorry, it's better than yours. He has substantial knowledge and experience in that field, obviously. Okay, man, he's also a convicted pedophile who also loves Russia and voted for Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I feel like, you know, perhaps not the best look for someone like myself to literally fucking lean into what he's saying, okay? Jesus Christ, dude. Oh my fucking God. You wanted me to say it? I'll say it, okay? Holy shit. Please, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is going on? This is precisely why I understand how, like, I always wonder how people like fall for you know, Baba Vakian or LaRouche, right? And then I see a lot of fucking undisciplined baby leftists in this fucking chat who immediately prove exactly how dumbasses fucking fall for this grift. The reason why I don't talk about a lot of this other, you know, alternative, you know, leftist cults basically is because I feel like I'm giving them more of a platform when I even mention it, especially at a time when there's no real fucking left movement in this country anyway. But fuck, man, be a little bit more, you know, be a little bit more critical.
24 hours, and 4 of those have critical or serious injuries. In general, there is this worry that not all missiles are being intercepted, but also drones that are coming from Hezbollah's way into Israel, with certain times the Israelis announcing the failure of the alarm systems to detect these drones or to stop them from infiltrating further
Ritter
into
is majorly anti-Trump. You were very ignorant.
Israel.
No, he was one
For
of the
Israeli
Trump
army,
is...
it says that
He was one of the Trump is going to be the peace candidate guys.
it had been
Was he not?
undermining the powers of Hezbollah, that these anti-tank missiles that they have, as well as these drones, have been more powerful than they had anticipated. But this could be seen also as part of the Israeli attempts to push deeper into southern Lebanon. And we've seen that indeed with the Israeli army's continued threats to all Lebanese living in southern Litani River to evacuate their homes and go to up north.
Thank you, Nida, for that. Nida Ibrahim in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank.
So day
11. Trump just on Truth Social just now has said, if Iran has put any mines in the Hormuz Strait and we have no reports of them doing so, we want them removed immediately. If for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. If, on the other hand, they remove what may have been placed, it will be a giant step in the right direction. Kind of feels like Donald Trump is speaking from a place of utmost confidence, don't you think? This dumbass is literally fucking sitting and watching CBS and CNN on television, and instead of going to his advisors and being like, is this real? He's just tweeting shit out, live reacting to the TV while simultaneously begging. This is why I said, regardless of my criticisms of Russia, okay, and regardless of what I think Russia should have done instead of like militarily invading Ukraine, the current situation that is determined by Russia's positions, its hardened positions in eastern Ukrainian territory, show that America doesn't have the cards at all as far as dealing with Russia, right? And that played a major, that struck a major blow at the power that Western countries had in terms of like maintaining this global order, being the world police, doing whatever the fuck they want to, whatever the fuck they want to anywhere around the world. Like, they could no longer engage in a serious proxy battle against Russia that would destroy the Russian military and cause them to fucking back away. And the same thing is happening here as well. This is blow after blow to Western Empire. Yeah, here, this is Scott Ritter, Tulsi Gabbard, and the Trump Revolution. Not sure why Scott Ritter is so optimistic about the Trump foreign policy team. This piece ignores Trump's neocon picks and focuses instead on Trump's stated commitments to be anti-war. No one gives a fuck in the global south about that. Their output is good for the world. I know. That's partially why I've always talked about how like the third world's position unironically is pro-Russia and pro-Palestine. And a lot of people in the first world don't understand why. And I've tried to explain exactly why a lot of guys that live in developing nations don't give a fuck about Russia invading Ukraine militarily. And people get mad at me and they think, oh, well, how dare you say that? Ukrainians are suffering. I understand that. Okay. But if you're living in like Burkina Faso, okay, you don't give a fuck. You're like, okay, fuck America, fuck France, like fuck the Western world. Russia is the only country crazy enough to militarily oppose the Western powers. That's the way they see it. That's their analysis. That's their interpretation. Okay? That's it. Ritter was wrong about Tulsi and you were wrong about Russia. If you put the same level of weight into being wrong about Tulsi Gabbard in 2024 to me literally leaning into on the ground reports from the Ukrainian side and also an analysis that once again it clearly laid out how dramatic of a misstep this would be for Russia to invade Ukraine militarily. If you find that there is like similar weight on both of these interpretations, you are fucking delusional. Okay? That is crazy. That is literally fucking nutty. You're talking about 2024. I clocked Tulsi Gabbard as a fucking crank in like 2016. I clocked Tulsi Gabbard as a fucking crank when even Kyle was like writing for Tulsi Gabbard. Go back and watch our conversations from like 2018, 2019, and you will hear me say, Tulsi Gabbard's a fucking crank. Jimmy Dore's a fucking crank. You guys are stupid for believing these people. It was the most obvious thing. This is not the same as assuming that Russia wouldn't be wild enough to fucking invade Ukraine militarily, a country with 40 million people, whose entire nationalist project is quite literally designed around not being Russian. Anyway, people's opinions change with new info. Don't you think that there was plenty of information in November 2024 to indicate that Tulsi Gabbard was not anti-war at all? This is after she participated in psychological operations in Africa for like a year. Don't you think? And she has never shied away from her Islamophobia in general. Don't you feel like that's a clear indication that she was not an anti-imperialist pick at all, an anti-imperialist choice at all? She was literally a fucking CIA agent. What the hell's wrong with you? Shut up. There's not new information at that point. If you're saying that in November 2024, you're delusional. And I'm going to obviously mistrust your analysis.
Of the Iranian war. US military dominance continues, with the US claiming they've conducted over 5,000 target strikes since the start of the war. Even Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has claimed that today Iran has fired the fewest missiles across.
I'm asking how you knew Tulsi was a crank back in whenever you said like 2017, just her voting record or nah? No, her sentiment about Islam, dangers of Islam. A lot of people thought Tulsi Gabbard was anti-war, anti-imperialist because she was like pro-Bashar al-Assad. There's no other way to put it. She literally was communicating as though she was pro-Bashar al-Assad. She literally went to Syria. She hung out with Assad. A lot of people thought, oh, she's like anti-interventionist. She's anti-interventionist for that reason. No, the reason why she was literally pro-Assad was because she was insanely Islamophobic. She openly said that she doesn't want to engage in unnecessary interventions. Whenever someone says that, Glenn Greenwald does that every now and then too, but not as much right now. Glenn Greenwald's analysis is a lot more sound nowadays, even though he also was the Trump is the anti-war candidate as opposed to the Democrats guy. Okay. But even before she like fully leaned into Donald the Dove nonsense, her close ties to BJP and Hindutva fascists and her unimaginably maximalist anti-Islamist position, anti-Islam position, not anti-Islamist position, caused me to obviously identify her as a crank and someone who was not sincere about presenting herself as a fucking anti-war pig. She literally had no issue with drone warfare. She talked about how she loves drone warfare and how we should actually do more drone warfare, as a matter of fact. By 2024, she had already participated in psychological operations in Africa, in the African continent, regardless. So at that point, you definitely knew that she was an agent of empire. So it's even beyond that point. Like, it's past the point of her becoming an associate with Donald Trump and basically like switching sides. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous at that point to still think like she's actually anti-war. You're out of your mind. You're... Anyway, let's continue.
At America since the start of the war, and by contrast, it's been the busiest day for America targeting Iran, which has led to President Trump.
Democrats aren't anti-war either. The fuck? When have I said the Democrats are not? The Democrats are not pro-war. I understand that. My assessment on this is if you don't have the same level of smoke for both fucking parties, it's not crazy for me to assume that you're kind of on board with one of the two parties. I have the same analysis for both parties. And I will even talk about like what marginal differences exist between two parties. A lot of people will then turn around and say, I'm a fucking sheepdog for the Democrats for that reason. It's very frustrating. Okay? It's very, very frustrating. I want to move the needle in the appropriate direction to the best of my ability with the limited confines that I'm working with, okay? No, we're not being raided by Asmongold. This is a natural process of having a consistent anti-imperialist position. There will always be some cranks that people lean into without realizing that these guys are like conspiracy theorists or cranks. It's fine.
To not only talk about this.
Is the difference between anti-imperialism and like campism, maybe? Even though if you're a campus, you're like right 99% of the fucking time, so it doesn't even matter for the most part. But that 1% is significant because that if your analysis is, if you're leaning into ridiculous idealism in your analysis, then you're gonna have faulty analysis and you're gonna go down weird rabbit holes. This is the reason why we always oppose Nick Fuentes' interpretation of events, because Nick Fuentes is operating on an anti-Semitic level. His care and consideration for like America's militarism in the region is literally around like Jewish control, the international Jewry, all this shit. Okay, it's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. It's crazy fucking conspiracy theories.
Being very close to winning, but also saying this could be an absolute victory. The challenge, of course, is this realistic based on what we're seeing from a military perspective on the ground? There's no doubt at all that America and Israeli focus at the moment is on the offense, but it's really clear that you also have to look after the defense, not only to make sure you limit casualties on your own side, but also to protect the infrastructure, not only your own air bases, but also that of the Middle East partners. At the start of the war, it was believed that Iran had about 1,500 ballistic missiles, about 100 launchers, potentially more than 80,000 drones. But it's also believed that since the start of the war, they've used up about 500 of their ballistic missiles and about 2,000 of the drones. 40.
There's no clear-cut number on how many drones exist in the Iranian stockpiles, but the estimates are around 50,000, just so you understand. And also they have the capabilities to consistently manufacture these drones in underground facilities.
Percent of those being targeted against Israel,